Hi and welcome to the channel. I'm Elise Russell and today we're going to talk about the concept of lessons learned. So I spend a fair bit of time with my business working with a corporate client where we have a regular team meeting once a week and we go through the projects and the things that are coming up. We also have a section in this meeting where we come back and reflect on things that we've been working on, that we're in process on working on, or things that have finished called lessons learned. It's a great opportunity or tool to reflect on what's working, what's not working, whether things are happening in the appropriate timelines, safely, and meeting the standards of this organization. This is something that can be used on a personal level, and I think it's incredibly valuable to sit down on a regular interval and evaluate what's happening with you, to do your own personal reflection on the lessons learned or where you're at with what you want to do with your life, with your health and wellness, with the goals that you're trying to accomplish, any measure or any area that you'd like to sit down and drill into a little bit. So some of the common things that come up with lessons learned is, did this work? Did this process that we've employed, quite often in corporate, it's the contractor we're using, is this working, or are they accomplishing the goal that we want to? But you can look at this as the tools in your life. So let's talk about, I know I use weight loss all the time, but this is kind of a universal concept because everyone eats and everyone has this moment at least once a week where they're like, oh, could I have done that better? Or perhaps you step on the scale and the result's not what you want it to be. So let's say, for instance, you decide you're going to try the ketogenic diet. So you start to cut the carbohydrates down or out of your life. You get down to 100 grams of carbs a day or less, 70. And you are careful about the vegetables you're eating and you're watching putting good healthy fats in, hopefully. And you start to see some results. The scale moves, you're maybe noticing you're not as foggy in the brain, and you have a little more energy, and maybe you're noticing you don't have inflammation in your joints, or you just feel this overall sense of like, wow, this is awesome, it's working. And then life starts to move along and you start to realize like, oh, I'm on holidays, it's summertime, or it's Thanksgiving, or it's whatever time that happens to present itself with some higher carbohydrate eating or desserts, whatever it is. And you start to have these habits in your life or things that the average person just does. They start to creep back in. And before you know it, the ketogenic diet isn't really working that well for you. And I'm not throwing shade at the ketogenic diet, but it's just a really easy example. So what happens? You probably at some point throw it all out, right? Or you're like, well, I'm just going to live this modified version of it, or whatever. But the results stop or they backstep a little bit, and you kind of wonder like, why did this happen? Where am I at? So the real question in this scenario, this pretend scenario, is like, did it work? Well, yes. When you lived the ketogenic diet lifestyle, yes, it worked. Of course it worked, because you cleared some things out that were causing some negative results in your body that you weren't happy with. And once you got rid of those things, it worked. It cleared them up. Okay. But how did you feel about it? At first, were you kind of like, oh, it was hard to make the sacrifice? And then you're like, well, actually, it wasn't too bad. It became a habit. I found some things that were good substitutes and I was happy eating them. And I learned when I was in social situations or out for dinner with friends or whatever to adjust and to order things that made sense. So, yes, there was a part of it that you can be positive about and say, that worked. And I found ways to make my life scenarios work. So that's awesome. The next question you need to ask with any lifestyle choice or anything that you're choosing to work on is, can I keep this up? Like, is this maintainable? How long can I go with this? If I look at this choice as a marathon in my life, am I willing to keep running? Okay. And that can be a tricky question, because suddenly you start to realize like, oh man, I don't know if I'm loving this. Like, I don't know if, could I live ketogenically or in that ketogenic state for the rest of my life? Like, I could live a long time. That could be a long process. The other question, and something else that comes into most of our lives because humans are social, is how is this choice, or how is this pattern or lifestyle, how's it working with my relationships and the people around me? You know, am I always saying no to things? Am I always stepping back? Am I grouchy because I'm not doing what everyone else is doing? Those are very real things as an individual. So brings to mind an experience when I was in 2016. I worked with a coach. I decided after a significant amount of what I felt was advancement in my physical state and my physical appearance, I wanted to hire a coach and a friend, a colleague in the fitness industry who was a figure competitor and who coached, because I wanted to see if I could like take it to the next level. I wanted to see my six pack. Okay, yes, I'm vain. It happens. So I hired her. She provided me with a meal plan. She had these great suggestions on things I should be doing on top of the meal plan. And even as a fitness professional, she gave me, a workout regimen and was like, you have to start adding some really like specific strength training into this. Like, I know you're teaching and you're running all over and you're doing HIIT and spin and you're doing metabolic conditioning, but you need to actually like dial in and build some muscles more than you got. And I remember thinking, okay, all right, good. I'm game. Let's do this. So my kids are younger than they are now, more work. And I was still running around teaching 10 to 15 classes a week all over the city. And I got into it. I got going. I weighed, I measured, I tracked. I had a spreadsheet. Like I did all sorts of stuff with it. And I would find that for myself personally, I was having to do 5 or 6 meals a day. And when I would get to the last meal of the day, I would literally be like sitting there at my kitchen table, like almost disgustedly looking at a plate of food, thinking, I'm not even hungry. Like, I feel gross eating this. I literally feel gross eating it. And it wasn't like I was eating a bowl of Fruit Loops or, candy. Like, it was fish and broccoli and some rice or whatever. It was a healthy meal. And after 8 weeks of this, I finally was taking my progress pictures. I was taking my weight measurements and sending them to her. And I kind of thought to myself, like, I don't think I can do this. I feel frustrated by it. And I sat down and had a talk with her, and I said, I feel like, how do you maintain this? I don't understand how you do this on a daily basis or for years and years and years, because she'd been at it for quite some time. And she said, oh, it's going to become a lifestyle. You'll just adjust. You'll like it. But, with that deeper reflection, I really started to realize, like, I don't think this is a lifestyle that I want to maintain. It's not something on a long term in my life that I want to do. I had bounced the same 2 pounds back and forth. I didn't really feel like my body composition had looked all that different. And I realized it takes longer than 8 weeks, but I had this very clear concept in my mind of like, I can't keep this up. And there's elements of it that I really enjoy and that I feel good about, but hitting 200 grams of protein a day makes my stomach feel terrible. The digestion's terrible. Maintaining that work of keeping all those meals going and feeding my family at the same time was exhausting after that amount of time. And I just kind of felt like, okay, maybe I don't want to do this. I will say what I did keep from it that was positive was a love for strength training. It had been a long time since I had worked out just for me. It had been a long time since I put on my own music on headphones and trained and just dialed in to my own core and to my own body and how it felt as I was doing it. So that was something that I was like, yes, this has been good. This is a lesson learned I want to continue to use in my life. I stopped the coaching. I stopped all the eating. I kept the strength training going. And I still struggled for quite some time with the sense of failure. I kept thinking, am I not strong enough? Did I not have enough self-discipline? Did I not have enough, longevity? Like, am I an instant gratification person? Like, what happened? I worked through those feelings for quite some time. But on the other side of it, just like that evaluation of, did a contractor do the job right? Was it safe? Was the result what we wanted? I had those same conclusions that I came to for myself. This person was a great coach. I enjoyed the conversations I had with her. I learned more about, tracking what I was eating and trying to balance some things out as far as nutrition goes. I learned, like I said, to absolutely love strength training and the value of taking care of just me instead of taking everyone else's fitness or nutrition or life, as in my children and my husband. I learned to dial in a little bit about taking care of me, which was very valuable. I learned that in the long run, eating in moderation and keeping some balance in my life was going to be the most sustainable practice. And it was going to provide a more balanced picture of my overall health and wellness and my personal enjoyment and feeling satisfied. Lessons learned are a great tool. Personal reflection, going back, asking those questions. Did something I tried work? If it's something you tried worked, what about it worked? It isn't just enough like, yeah, well, if I ate less, I lost weight. Well, what about it worked? And what in dialing into that, you find out what practices or what choices in your everyday life that you're going to make that are going to help you sustain that process or that choice or that decision. It's also going to have allow that deeper sense of dialing into the intention of the goal and how you feel about when you're doing it. So I didn't feel peaceful about shoving that food in. I didn't feel peaceful about eating when I just wasn't even remotely hungry, like to push the brain and to push past that message of like, no, we're full, stop eating. That was a valuable lesson to learn where it was like, no, that doesn't fit for me. And drilling in more and more and more. I also paid attention, like I said, to the people or the relationships around me and how it affected them. I didn't want to be forever saying to my husband, oh, I don't want to go out for dinner, or I don't want to go hang out with people, or I don't want to be in this social situation because I can't maintain this level of perfection or, detail and care. I don't have the willpower to do it, which again made me feel negative. So it's about digging into the details. Figure out what works for you. Drill into why it works for you. Drill into how you feel when you're doing it and the intention behind it, which is more than a physical appearance or more than a physical outcome, but how your overall health and wellness or your overall state of being is. And there is the real lesson. There's the real takeaway, is that this choice you're making in your life is actually sustainable on a long term, and it's the one that's the right one for you right now. So I hope this has helped. I hope this is something that you can put into practice in your life. Would love to hear more about it from you. If you're interested, you can always reach out to me personally at elise@russellwellnessgroup.com, or you can comment in the section below on the video. Thanks for coming to the channel, and I hope to see you soon.